Are you tired of all the voices who say, focus on the bottom line numbers?
Say whatever you have to, just close the sale.
Just get the credit card. It doesn't matter what you deliver.
You will never build a successful business until you grow a pair and stop caring so much.
Here, we respectfully disagree. We give you permission to embrace who you are, how much you care, and encourage you to design a business that works for you and your clients. Welcome to The Art of Giving a Damn, the podcast that proves with every single episode that you can create a profitable business doing what you're passionate about and making a positive difference in the world. Now here's your host, Michelle Schaefer.
Welcome back for another episode of The Art of Giving a Damn. My guest today is Carl Hunter. Carl, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Michelle. Thanks for having me.
I am really curious to dive into more of what you do because it is extremely unique, especially the perspective you bring to it. So to introduce you to the audience, you are an artist, an entrepreneur, a transformational coach, and an expert in programming the subconscious mind, which we all know it exists. We all know it's sort of controlling things here and there, but to most of us, it's a mystery how it works and how to get it on our side, so to speak. So we're going to dive into talking about what you've created with your MindPower Acceleration Technology called MindFlavors. I know you started self-development very young in childhood, seeking ways to improve and change your behavior to get the results you were after, which I think is what motivates most of us is, hey, what I'm doing isn't working. There's got to be another way. And you've discovered ways to reprogram and repattern your own subconscious mind. So let's start there. What got you into this particular field? How did things lead you this way in life?
Well, about a little over 30 years ago, I had just started my own diamond business, and for the first 6 months or so, it went really well, and then suddenly things just started falling apart, and it kind of expanded into everything into my life, and I didn't know why. I couldn't figure out what was going on, and so I had to do some deep soul searching, and in the process, I came across some information that led to me understanding that I could program my subconscious mind. And I learned about a simple writing process that you can do just before you go to sleep, if you do it in a certain way, where you can input things right into your subconscious mind. So you can influence your subconscious blueprint, so to speak, and have a different result show up in your life. So I started experimenting with that, got overnight results, and decided right in that moment that I was going to master this process. So that was kind of the beginning of my journey.
Wow. Well, I mean, that makes sense. I think that's when a lot of us start looking into how do I fix this, is when something goes wrong that we can't figure out why it's not working the way that we want it to or expect it to, especially when you've succeeded with something like that before. So that's so interesting. You went from, something that was really working with the diamond business and then diving into this and decided to make this what you focus on in business. So it's probably not a guess here. I'm guessing, not really, that a lot of people you run into have got to wonder how you created different results for yourself to the point that you decided to teach this. So based on what you've studied over the years and what you've really dove into with this, what kind of things can people change about their life based on the subconscious mind?
Well, you can change pretty much anything and everything that you'd like to. I find that the easiest thing to see immediate results with is how other people respond to you. So I first started experimenting with programming myself to project things outwardly, because this is living from the inside out versus the other way around. And most people are used to living from the outside in. So what I do is I program what I'd like to experience, and then I just live my life and allow things to show up. So the process is you write just before you go to sleep in cursive exactly what you'd like to experience. So how other people respond to you is usually the quickest, easiest thing. However, I've programmed things physically to show up and have them show up overnight all the time.
Wow. Okay. So explain that idea a little bit more to me, the idea of living from the inside out versus outside in.
Well, anywhere from 95 to 99% of our behavior is controlled from our subconscious mind. And that blueprint that pretty much runs the show was developed between birth and the age of reason, which is roughly 8 years old. So we're literally in hypnosis during those years, and we're just soaking information up, and we're making determinations about what we believe, how we believe reality is, how we believe people are to us, how we believe the world is. And those beliefs get kind of cemented into our subconscious. And then everything after that, after we start developing our reasoning mind, everything has to be filtered through that blueprint of the subconscious mind. And it's there to protect us. However, the problem is that most people interpret reality in distorted ways when they're children. And so they might look at things, and just because somebody yelled at them, they might think, oh, people are mean, or the world is a terrible place. And then they will continue to attract throughout their life situations where everything is valid, that belief is validated. So we each have a unique experience of our own realities that we're all experiencing simultaneously, but they're different from one person to the next.
That makes sense. And I don't think any of us really, on a conscious level anyway, want the 8-year-old to be driving around in the driver's seat. But that's really, really a fascinating idea to look at, because it is true. We validate what we expect to see. And I think a lot of times it's something that we're not even aware that that's the reason reality is interacting with us the way it is that's what we expect. And so we find evidence to prove what we've already decided we think is true.
Yes, and to answer further some of your questions there about what kinds of things, I've worked with people over the years. When I first started learning about this, I started telling everybody and started sharing it with people, and I found that most people had resistance to change. So just learning about this didn't necessarily cause them to get engaged in it. And I found early on that most people were not willing to create their own, I call them power declarations, to write. And so I started writing some for people, and they would write them and they would get the outcome. And anywhere from things like, I had one friend of mine who, she told me that she wanted to become a golf pro. And because I'd asked people, tell me something that you'd like to experience. And then I would give them some power declarations to write about that. And she said, I'd like to become a golf pro. And I said, well, because I didn't even know if she could swing a club at this point. And so I said, well, let's start with something a little simpler. And so I gave her 4 power declarations to write. And one was about being a winner. One was about improving her golf game. One was about sticking to the process and noticing the results. So because the subconscious, if it doesn't recognize things, it'll trick you and say, nothing's really happening, forget about it. So she wrote them, 4 statements. She wrote them the first night. The second day, she said every time she had an idle time throughout the day, she would think about them. And then she wrote them again the third night. And the next day, she entered her first ever golf tournament, won first place, and won $500.
Oh, wow.
So then I saw her again, because she was working at my chiropractor's office at the time, so I would see her periodically. And each time I saw her, she'd say, yeah, I've won several more competitions, always first or second place. She was winning money. And then the last time I saw her, she was entering a men's tournament because they told her she could enter the tournament as long as she golfed from the same tees as the men did. So,
wow.
And it was really cool because her name was Deanne, and she said, I can just hear him now over the loudspeaker. Deanne Stout wins the men's tournament. Now, I didn't see her again after that, so I don't know if she actually won that tournament, but it's an example of one of the many things. I've shared it with politicians who've won elections and come back and told me they know that's why they won, because we can only create what's in that blueprint. And our subconscious mind is so powerful that it's going to make sure that it lines things up to match what's in that blueprint. So if we want to change our life, we got to change the blueprint.
That is such a powerful concept. You know, it's interesting because when you look at that imagination part of things of, can you see this as a possibility for yourself? I think sometimes that's where people get stuck. They never actually take that step of imagining this is possible. And then the further step of putting it into language where they're reinforcing that. One of the things I found interesting that I wanted to ask you about when I looked at some of the power affirmation examples in your ebook, which for anybody listening, there's a link somewhere near this video, the audio, where you can get a copy of Carl's free ebook that walks you through this process a little bit more. One of the things that I thought was interesting that it differs from affirmations and from what we hear, like, you know, envision yourself. We've all seen it in The Secret. Sit down in your chair, envision yourself in the car, and, you know, all of that. And what I thought was fascinating about your approach is it's more, the statements start with things like, I accept, I allow, it feels safe to. And that's interesting to me because when I've tried to do affirmations before, and I've talked about this on my show, like I will say, you know, this is reality, and my brain immediately goes, no, it's not.
Yeah, exactly.
And it doesn't work well for me because then my brain's in a fight with itself, right? So talk to me a little bit about that piece of it and how this is different from what we may have tried before in terms of things that, you know, when it comes to the subconscious mind, there's all these different approaches people take. And some of them I don't see consistently work, like the affirmations. This seems different.
Yes, and the reason why I call them power declarations versus affirmations is for that very reason. Yeah. The subconscious is very powerful at resisting change, and one of the ways that it resists is if you're calling it an affirmation. And what is the definition of an affirmation? You're affirming something. So if your mind is saying, I'm affirming that I'm experiencing this, and you're seeing that you're not experiencing that, then the mind has a tendency to say, oh, this is all baloney. You know, how could this possibly work? And it's actually counterproductive. So that's why you hear a lot of people say, oh, positive thinking doesn't work. Affirmations don't work.
Right.
When in reality, they do work if you do it if you approach it in a certain way. And so I call them power declarations for that reason, because you can declare something and your mind, it has nothing to argue about because it's a declaration rather than an affirmation. So simply by reframing it like that, because your mindset, while you're doing these things, your mindset is everything. How you're doing it determines what quality of outcome that you get. Everything from resistance to the positive outcome, depending on where you are in between as to how you're approaching this. What kind of frame of mind you're in as you're doing it. That does make a big difference. Also, what's interesting is early on, I had some people who were very skeptical when I was telling them about this writing process. They were skeptical. Okay. They're like, how could this possibly work? And so I said, you know what? I don't even want you to believe that it's going to work. Let's do an experiment. Just go ahead and write the things that I give you, and let's see what happens. And every time, they got the outcome. So our minds are truly amazing. Now, if you fast forward to today, about a little over 4 years ago, I was, after using this process of programming my subconscious for over 3 decades, and I've manifested so many so many things, traveling around the world, selling millions of diamonds, all kinds of things, winning art contests with my art, pretty much every area of my life. Everything I've created has been through my subconscious programming. And about a little over 4 years ago, I was at a point where I was feeling like I was kind of reaching a plateau. And even though I could continue to manifest things, something was telling me there's more. There's a faster way. There's even more that I can do with this. And so I programmed myself to increase my manifestation abilities exponentially. And that's when I was drawn to new information. Now, I've learned that how this works with my mind. What I do is I program myself to experience a reality, and then I pay attention to what shows up in my world, in my experience. So I program myself to increase my manifestation abilities exponentially. That's the beauty about the writing. You can use very descriptive words, and you can go as big as you'd like. And suddenly I was drawn to information that some ancient wisdom around sacred geometry that got me interested in looking further into this. And what I discovered was that some of these ancient shapes and symbols actually stimulate cerebral activity just by looking at the static image.
Okay.
So that intrigued me, and I decided I was going to experiment with that. And fast forward to today, I've developed a new technology that is freeing people's minds in literally 4.5 minutes. What people are experiencing immediately is relief from pain, sorrow, depression, doubt, worry, fear, all of that just gone in minutes. And these are things that prior to this technology, I did not know were possible. I didn't know it was possible to live without mind chatter going on in the head. I didn't know it was possible to not ever worry about anything. I didn't know it was possible to not have procrastination or to feel, to be without stress. All of these things
those are some big ideas there. It's hard to believe. I mean, it's hard to imagine not having those things that I think most of us accept as like, okay, this is part of the human experience.
Yes. In fact, we hear all the time when I'm hearing different people who are coaching people, and they'll just talk about how, you know, they'll say, oh, well, I help people to deal with stress or deal with doubt and still take action even if they have fear. And I can tell you that it's not necessary to deal with it and keep fighting against it when you can just completely clear it out.
Yeah, that seems like a better alternative to me. I mean, that does seem like the better choice given those two things. And that is true. Most of what we hear is whatever you feel, you just got to do it anyway. You just got to push past it. You just got to make the choice to, not let it stop you. So this is that's really kind of mind-blowing to think that that's possible. So
it's
talk
interesting.
to me more about how that piece works.
It's interesting you use that term mind-blowing because a number of our members in our program have stated publicly. They said this should be called mind-blowing, not MindFlavors. Because people are experiencing these things that I'm talking about, and they're even saying that they didn't ever think it was possible for them to be happy in these ways. It's so interesting. One of the first things that we notice when people watch this technology is they instantly, because we do private screenings where we allow people to experience it first, and we record them on video before and after. And it's just a night and day difference. They go from usually being a little bit guarded, like most people are, just normally, to suddenly being like a little kid with complete permagrin. They just can't stop smiling. And most of them say that. They say, I don't know why I'm smiling. I just feel so happy. I just can't stop smiling.
Wow. Okay. So this is so fascinating. So you mentioned a couple of times the technology. Is this something that's virtual? Is it like, how does the program actually work? What are the pieces of it?
Well, it's a synergistic approach. So there are quite a few different transformational elements that are combined in it. So it's a full-on experience, audio, visual.
Okay.
So it's a video that you watch with headphones. And
okay, so this can be done from anywhere in the world. People don't have to like fly to you. Okay.
Correct. We have everything in a members area where people log in and just have all of their tools that they can use for their transformation.
Okay. Wow. It's really a fascinating concept.
So what's actually, like I said, there are a number of different things that are influencing and causing the change. But one of the significant aspects of this is called brainwave entrainment. And what's unique about this technology is I use a variety of forms of brainwave entrainment, including visual as well as, or audio as well as visual, and multiple forms of brainwave entrainment. And brainwave entrainment essentially is, it's like a way to physically align your brain waves to match specific frequencies. So when people are watching this technology, most of the time they'll say, wow, I feel like I just had a 30-minute or 45-minute meditation, and it felt this way right from the first minute. Because what I do is with the technology is as you're watching this, and it's an effortless process. You don't have to think about things. You don't have to do anything. You just relax and watch this, and it does all the work for you. So it just immediately clears out all of those limiting negative beliefs that people have been burdened with for most of their lives.
Wow.
So with repeated exposure to this, because, the subconscious mind benefits from repetition. That's how it learns. So now people do experience this right from the very first time. However, the more they do this, the more it continues to, we have layers. Over the years, we take on beliefs and we continue to affect our subconscious by our experiences, and we just continue to bury those layers. And so as people are going through this technology, those layers start peeling back, and then they rewire and they release that stuff, and then sure enough, a little bit later, another layer is going to come up, and then they dig deeper and deeper things. And all of those things that are coming up and dissipating are things that were holding them back. There were patterns in their brain that were blocking them from having the success that they were seeking. So a lot of times we think, okay, well, if I just work harder, if I just do more of this, or if I push harder, or if I can just meet the right people or say the right things. And I'm here to tell you all of that stuff is beside the point. It's what your subconscious blueprint says is what's going to happen. So when I talk about living from the inside out, that's exactly what I'm talking about. Most people are living from the outside in, thinking that they're hammering things into place in the physical world, and wondering why they're not lining up. Or if they do get them to line up, then they fall apart and they say, well, why is that happening? That's exactly what was happening with me when I first started learning about this process. I was living from the outside in, and it required me to realize that I was generating things on the inside, even though I wasn't conscious of it. And today, I'm conscious of it. And today, in our program, these are the things that we teach people about, is how to become aware of these things and how to live from the inside out. And then we provide the tools for the transformation. And The Secret was an amazing movie when it came out. I was thrilled when it came out because I thought right away, oh, great. Now I can just give people a DVD, because I was telling people about all this subconscious stuff, and it was a lot of talking. And unfortunately, after it came out, people got aware of all this, but they didn't really give solid how-to instruction.
Right.
And so
Right.
people started feeling like, is this stuff even work? Is this law of attraction stuff even real? It is real. You just have to do it in a certain way.
Right. I think that was the thing, is it was kind of a great introduction to the concept, but it didn't really give you how to apply it and make it work for you.
Yeah, exactly.
Man, well, okay. Looking at all of this, guys, first step I would say is click the link somewhere near this video and check out the ebook with all of these power declarations in it. It'll give you an idea of something that you can start doing right away if you're listening to this and thinking, yeah, that's the kind of thing I'm looking for. That's what I want to change. Maybe that's why things aren't quite going the way that I want them to right now. I encourage you to check that out. And you can find it on Carl's website. Again, we'll put the link somewhere near where you are watching or listening to this today, but it's mindflavors.com/ebook. Check that out and see. And Carl, I would love to set up a follow-up conversation to dive deeper into some of what you were talking about with the sacred geometry and other things that you've brought into the program you've created. I think it's absolutely fascinating.
Well, I appreciate that, and I would love to come back again. There's a lot to talk about on this subject, and it's pretty exciting stuff.
It's amazing. All right. Well, thank you for taking the time to come on the show today. I appreciate it. And I think I'm going to have listeners send in some questions so we can maybe do a follow-up Q&A. I have a feeling this will be a hot topic. So I will have to follow up with you about that.
Oh, that'd be great. I look forward to it.
Thank you. And thank you, everybody, for tuning in today. Please like, rate, review, subscribe to the show, and we will see you back again soon on another episode.